Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Friday, January 1st. Let's hop into the game. I did a little bit of playing off screen since this is the new expansion and they're giving away gold and card packs and just all kinds of stuff. And since there is a single player quest every single day, like there's some extra effort I'm willing to put in here. Here we have like 1,000 extra gold for the New Year's, which is not something I think you get every expansion, and probably should be something that we get. I played in a private battle and got another 100, or no, I played 2 private battles and got 200 things. Let's see, what else have we made progress on? If we come over here, there's just too many places all over the place as far as event rewards. We get another 50 for doing a private battle. You get a card pack tickets times 3. That big difference there, like 300 gold equivalent versus 50 gold. And as far as these registered ones, I assume these all happen at the end of the day. And we'll reset. And we'll reset at some point today, since I always seem to stream right when it decides to reset everything. So since we're on the screen, we'll buy at least 1 pack of the old, and then we'll buy a bunch of packs of the new. We'll see how many vials that can get us as far as redundant cards. Well, that might be new, or like questionable if that's new, but made a sound effect, so that's weird. So let's buy another pack. Let's make a system here where we keep going as long as we get a sound effect, and if we don't get a sound effect, then we'll stop. Yeah, that definitely feels like this might have been new, and this is like an animated version of this card, which I don't know if there really are differences between animated versions and non-animated versions when you're talking platinum level cards. That very well may be the maximum that you just get that. Alright, for the accountability section, I did actually schedule 1 show, but I need to continue. I'm only scheduled up to, well, here we've got another fancy card we're getting. I'm scheduled up to about March. I think I want to go through April and do a second Halloween in the month after April, whatever, May, I guess. Whatever month that is after April. I don't memorize the months. It's not worth it. Finally we hit a non-success point. And yeah, we are 159 more packs away from getting tradables unlocked. Let's see, we don't have any other card packs, do we? Well, we do. We have a World Uprooted card pack, which we might as well open. I think I may have gotten that through a daily quest. So yeah, I need to do more scheduling. I've been putting it off for months, and then I need to think about the next game I'm gonna work on. I spent the majority of my time yesterday rewriting and adding code to my end-to-end encrypted forwarder program that emails logs and other things, any email, frankly. Yeah, it replaces the email program and sends all emails encrypted to one specific address. It fails miserably, and I guess I could make more progress to have it have multiple addresses. But for every address you would want to send it to, I think the line of code, since it's just using a lot of other programs and softwares, it's hardly like I'm building this up from scratch. This is on the shoulders of giants type coding. Certainly rolling your own security wouldn't be the smartest move. So I'm not touching any of the security. I'm just making a wrapper program that emails it, and it works. And I had to rewrite it quite a bit and to get it to work, moving back to Debian. And I've figured out in the long haul that I've been writing bash scripts and then using sh to run the bash scripts, which usually works, but it's actually completely wrong. There are Unix style command shells that are like ash and otherwise. I think ash is a Unix style command shell, and they're the ones that use sh to run a script. Whereas the born again shell is supposed to be better than that, but it's Linux specific, and there are seemingly a decent amount of people who get prickly about the people using bash scripts instead of ash scripts, which at the moment I'm not willing to accommodate that prickly attitude, so I am making bash scripts, in particular since it seems like the non-bash scripts, the sh shells, don't handle arrays and probably miss quite a few other features that would require just making changes to the code to do the exact same thing, which is not the funnest way to write code. Certainly is to say, all right, this works here perfectly, your job is done, now rewrite it so it works for other people who have older systems and are using more obscure things, which inherently that just comes down to a level of how much do you want to support your software. But yeah, I was making a script that would watch the hardware. There's two softwares that I know of, and there's probably others that tell you what pieces of hardware are on a computer. One is ls PCI. ls is a standard list command by itself. You use it to list files. So if you're in a directory, you type ls, it shows you the files in the directory. It's the equivalent of dir in DOS, if that makes any sense to anybody. I guess it probably doesn't nowadays, since very few people are working in DOS, but or at least MS-DOS. But so then they combine it as one word to make it LSPCI, and it tells you what's on basically the PCI bus. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually tells you even more information than that. PCI is the peripheral connecting interface or component interface, something like that. It's the slots you put video cards in and other things. But there's also a lot of internal things on the motherboard that are connected secretly to the PCI bus also internally. Although watching for changes for an internal USB hub, seeing that be removed is kind of crazy, because the only way that would happen is if something horribly went wrong or someone is doing some incredibly crazy things to your computer. And then the other software, which is much more reasonable to see changes and likely to see changes, is LSUSB, which the name pretty much says it all, in the fact that, yeah, we're back up to having a decent amount of files. I won't use these files immediately, but I'll definitely think about it. I should use the files right before there's an expansion, or what I should do is come into like create mode and then select everything previous of this, and this is certainly would be a lot of clicking here. Like a lot of clicking here to do this, and so not really worth your time to do this and say, show me all the things except for the newest expansion, and then to come down and maybe even say, now that we're at that level, show me all the bronzes, and then just try and swap as fast as possible. And you have a limiting factor certainly here, in that you just cannot you cannot scroll through this that fast. Let's see. I guess if you click the buttons, you can maybe get a little bit further. And I imagine I'm not missing any cards that are bronzes until I'm at like page 30 or 40. Yeah, it's not until you get to this point that you can then say, alright, spend 50 here to create one of those, and spent 50 here to create one of those. And at a certain point, are you just trying to get one of every card, or are you trying to avoid opening packs? Because a lot of these things would almost certainly, you'd get 3 copies of them by creating packs and opening packs, but as a free-to-play player, you're not likely to be able to have all the packs, have all the money to buy all the packs that you would need to ever catch up, even just to have one to look at the art, which you're still definitely in that position where you're not really getting as good of art as it is on the loading screens. So yeah, it was incredibly difficult, way more difficult to get a program called diff in Linux to find the differences between a output from LSUSB or LSPCI and then what it would be 10 seconds later. And inherently, if you're not careful, you make a program like this, you set it up as a systemd service, which is its own separate thing, and it runs and writes something to the hard drive every 10 seconds. Do you really want to make your program that might be the program that breaks somebody's hard drive because you're just putting a ridiculous amount of writes to the hard drive? No, you don't. So you want to keep those things in RAM, because you don't need to save something to a file just because the program diff is designed to only look and see the differences between 2 files. And there's a complicated system there of running sub-processes to echo out the variables in a script to the diff program, and that was very difficult. In that process, I did find out that more modern operating systems, and modern being a relative term, and meaning I don't really know when this was implemented, have installed a folder by default. The Linux just makes this folder by default called /run on your root directory. Not /run, it's just called run. RUN. And run is a temporary file system that is created out of RAM, so you can write to the RAM and not likely ever wear out RAM doing it that way. But then the run folder is complicated too, in that you don't just by default have permissions to write folders into the run folder. Under run is a subfolder called users. Under that subfolder is each user's ID. Linux users each have an ID. 1000 is usually the default for the first user on the system, and that is the first folder that you can have run put files into. So I tried to code it so that it would the emailer would know which user ID was being used and write into that, but that didn't really work, so I just hard coded it to run right into 1000. It didn't really work because the way the service is run, it's run in the background, and that changes the user ID to root, pretty much, which root is not 1000. But that is a new improvement as far as my knowledge, is to say, okay, I'm not going to use the temp folder anymore unless there's a temporary file that I want to, that I know is going to be huge, like more than the run folder. I think on my system it's about 3 gigs. Yeah, not megs. There are some mounts that are really small, but it's about 3 gigs. So if you're going to fill up something in an install and you're going to take 100 gigs during that install, you still would need to use the temp folder, particularly if you're just, you should just make the assumption that not everybody is going to have all that RAM that could be used. But yeah, run is the right place if you're going to do a lot of writing. And so I moved everything around there, and I got it mostly working, although I still have yet to test it. I tested it once and then ran into a permission issue, but it seems like it is working. And then I'm just kind of spent some time adjusting the naming schemes and trying to get everything in the same place and correct. Trying to make sure that there's as good of code as I possibly can write without also going crazy. Here's another character that maybe there was some censorship here, but this is still showing a lot of belly. But it is also an older card, so I wouldn't be surprised if older cards aren't being censored as much as the still in play cards. A lot of these cards I do not recognize because they almost certainly don't have any relevance. I also, just briefly before I gave up, because I didn't want to get too deep into it, made some progress on getting my server and its Docker containers to work with the Swag Nginx proxy server back together. I found 2 settings in its initial install and disabled both of those settings, and then it started working again. So it is either a case that the setting that tells it to go and download the database of IPs based on what location they're from, thus so you could set up your server to block certain countries. Either when that fails, it just fails the entire container, which is a problem with Docker containers in general. Is if your initial code and setup is not good, it just won't work. There's very little debugging and minimal log returns, and that falls on the shoulders of the people making the Docker images, which clearly there's not enough support for that. And so either that was the case, or it was because I told it to validate the Let's Encrypt SSL HTTPS certificate through HTTP servers, and it didn't like that, which fair enough. Either way is fine by me. I feel like it is not still at a point where you can run a server and not support HTTP enough to at least tell people to go to HTTPS. The idea that we might in 100 years even stop all HTTP transfer and say everything has to be encrypted is unlikely. Like, I don't think we'd ever want to break that backward compatibility. The other thing I guess we could do is, if we were going to do that, we might as well just rebuild the entire internet from scratch and eliminate all backward compatibility. And that would be some kind of like IP version 7, 8, 9 concept. And I don't think that we would really willingly embrace that. Is there anything else nerdish to talk about as far as the accountability section? Because this is taking longer than I thought it was going to, but then it also took so long to bring up this list of cards that I don't want to waste my time. Yep. You can see we're only going to get to possibly the 5th group. There's still going to be many pages of bronze cards that we don't have at least one copy of. And it is very possible that we get to the tradables, and when we get to the tradables, we find that system actually doesn't help in any way, and then I just start buying packs randomly. Like, it still would probably be a conversation around the idea that it probably would be better to buy new cards instead of from newest packs and newest expansions instead of buying old cards from old packs. But I don't know, you might just want to randomize it. I guess the question is it easier if you have everything except for one platinum card to buy packs and try and get that platinum card, or just get a bunch of vials by buying packs from another collection where you've collected everything, so that you might get a platinum there and then be able to trade, liquefy and trade. It's probably better to buy packs because the liquefy is always less than the crate cost. This character looks a lot like one of the girls in Destiny Child, the lewd cell phone game that I'm still playing. They've moved on to a new season. Their Werewolf was a very interesting character when introduced, as it was a character that went heavy on bondage in its lewd outfit, which they don't do that much in Destiny Child. That they do cycle pretty well. If anything, I think the only thing that Destiny Child really fails to grasp is some of the more obscure character tropes. Like, almost all the characters are beautiful females that are big busted and come hither facial expressions is, I guess, the best way to describe it. That's a very old term. You can see we still have a lot, but we're getting there. We're getting close there. 10 to 12 pages left to get at least one. At least one being the minimal there. I almost certainly will never get all 3 copies of animated versions of every card. We have like nothing to do. Wow. Well, this is the problem with playing off screen. I got some more points so we can claim this. Then we have a card and a card. And since there's nothing to do for the moment, we'll just play this. We could play this in training, but no points will be rewarded. This points bonus has been activated. We might even need to do a deck rebuild. just as a way of having something to do. But yeah, Destiny Child's still going great, as good as it can be. There is a slight concern that they just constantly add more content and find new ways to try and get whales to pay more money. That's a slight concern. But yeah, this weekend I'll probably be, before we get into the big game news, I'll probably be a little bit reserved. I might do some more scheduling. I should do more scheduling. I just need to catch up on the scheduling anyways. But I'll probably be slow. I'll probably work on the Docker container server settings and try to get back into that. I'm not sure if my email encryptor monitoring system needs much more. I'm giving some thought certainly as to what would be the next step as far as detecting if a USB drive has been plugged in or unplugged, because that's a potential danger there, where there should be like a challenge response. Honestly, there probably is already existing a system out there that would stop USB devices from being plugged in and not, but that's kind of slightly out of scope from what I'm looking for. I'm looking for notification and possibly locking down / shutting down the computer. But then it feels really weird that somebody might plug in there or unplug a cord, and that would and then that would just immediately shut down the computer. So there needs to be some kind of challenge response there. The thought here is some hacker has gotten physical access to your server, in my case just my home server, but let's say it is a $10,000 server in some kind of facility somewhere. Somebody's broken into that facility, some hacker's gotten in there, and let's include in the definition hacker some government agency or some foreign government agency has tried to hack into it. Like, shutting down a computer can be about the best way to secure a computer, because there are ways, if you keep a computer alive, to hardwire directly into the RAM and try and read the RAM outside of it. Entire devices that you put on top of chips to read the electrical signals. This is high level hacking stuff that you probably shouldn't ever really be afraid of, but those are things, known vectors, that if there was a way to avoid them, then it would be nice to find a way to avoid them.
Is it edible? Only one way to find out.
Let's see. Remaining play points. Interesting. So yeah, that's a thought, but I need to think of what the system is. One of the things that's the problem with the end-to-end encryptor is it's just sending emails through Gmail servers. So there's no receiving of emails, which at a certain point you might want to just respond to it in an encrypted email and say shut down or do this or do that, and all of that is through remote. All of that would be through just remote management, like SSH instead. There's not really a good reason to
I'll look after this town for as long as I breathe.
Yeah, there's really not a good reason to try and rewrite the system. So the shutdown almost certainly has to be automated. but what delays the shutdown? Like, I feel like what you have to trigger, probably there, is a logout of all users. And if you're going to trigger a logout of all users, I think you've got to figure out what you're going to, how you're going to do that. I'm going to do this.
Wingless child, let the heavens be your shepherd.
And for extra space, we'll do this. But we still have a challenge to do the most amount of damage, so it does make sense to try and do as much damage. Yeah, but I suppose that would be it. You need to log out all of the users, and I have no idea how I'd do that. I'd have to research that. You're almost certainly could do it, but it's gonna be something like forcing a command on all terminals. And then you would have to start a countdown internally and see if any of the users log back in. And almost certainly the second you log out users, people are going to try to log back in, even if it is a bad actor. So then you have to decide how much is a reasonable amount of time to log back in to prove that it is you, versus somebody just trying to move your computer. And even in, as far as I've heard, even like local police do know to not turn off computers if they are gonna take them. At least they pretend like they know. I don't know if they always follow protocol. They have unique looking devices that plugs into an outlet and will literally shove power the wrong way into an outlet so that they can, in case the power goes out in the building, and that they can take the computer while it's still on. I wouldn't be surprised if there's even just a way to wrap a wire around another wire and inductively shove power into a computer, because it is fairly difficult to take a computer take a computer outlet with you. Now, I guess at a certain point it isn't that difficult. You could probably take the entire outlet, if you're shoving power through it, and just remove the outlet from the wall. Because if something is plugged in directly to the wall, there's really no other way to give it power without doing all kinds of weird things, and even that's really weird. But they try not to unplug anything. They try to take it all. At least they say they do. I think in a lot of cases, though, that's probably only if they think you're even slightly a good at computers. Whereas the most recent Florida case of them seizing a woman's computers who was running some small server, I wouldn't be surprised if that actually had very little procedure put around it, and they did just grab a laptop and walk away. Of course, if you have a power strip or a battery backup, it's easy enough to figure out how to shove power into a power strip the wrong way and then unplug it from a wall. But if something's plugged directly into a wall, that becomes a lot more difficult. Not impossible by any means, but a lot more difficult. So we want to evolve that.
Hold up your swords with pride.
And then do this. And do that.
Wait, it's slowing down.
And it would be too extreme, certainly, to write a notifier of any sort if you detected bad action and do more than just shut down. Like, the idea of a self-destruct in software is funny in storylines and fiction, but not really what you want in reality, and it's not really going to help you that much anyways, because you're going to end up just deleting everything on a hard drive. And even if you tried to use something like Derek's boot and nuke to really destroy all the evidence on a hard drive, I imagine that's just far too slow a process for anybody to run into. You're better off just having full disk encryption enabled, and when you log out, also disabling the root user in Linux, because if you don't disable login for the root user, then it's probably fairly trivial to reboot a computer in as a user, as the root user.
Dull work is never a waste of time.
I don't know if this actually is going to give me any extra
Or enemy troops.
points.
I'll leave you in two.
Alright.
Impressive.
I'm here, just like I said in my tip-off note.
Well, I think that's enough nerd talk. Pretty much every live stream now has just started with more nerd talk than video game talk. Which just kind of goes to show where I've been putting my mental focus lately.
Get ready for war! Too slow.
No.
So let's go through the video game news. Regardless, to say there was a lot of New Year's posts, Happy New Year's post. Seemingly it's the year of the cow. I don't know how. I didn't know the Chinese zodiac had a cow, but apparently it does, because I certainly saw that a lot of Japanese animators were drawing anime girls in cow bikinis for the new year, as their form of celebration. So yeah, that happened. I don't know if there's anything else that really needs to be said there.
My best wasn't enough.
Most of those I think we will skip over, because that's not really news to say. Everybody saying Happy New Year's, and we can certainly wax philosophic about, will 2021 be any better than 2020, and but I don't think there's really anything to be gained from doing that. Frankly, I think celebrating a New Year's is really just one of several things that exist in societies to help, how do you say this in a nice way, less mentally alert people. Idiots, let's just call them idiots. Like, people want to think that because a number changed on a Gregorian calendar that humans made, things are different, but things don't change because of that. A lot of ways things never change, or if they do change, it's certainly not triggered by arbitrary numbers and calendars. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Boombound, which some kind of cell phone game. Can't even really tell what it is. It looks super simplistic. $2.99, bunch of languages, nothing worth mentioning. Destroy follower, reanimate 3. Can't do that. I don't have anything to animate, and I don't have a follower I want to destroy. Here we have a game on Steam called Slide Mini, which seems like a racing game where you play as aquatic animals, which at a certain point, why are you not just racing in the ocean? at that level. I was watching a speedrun video of them setting up for their next event, and they were previewing by playing Diddy Kong Racing. It was fairly nostalgic to see Diddy Kong Racing, even being speedrun, where they miss a whole bunch of stuff and skip a whole bunch of stuff, because that definitely was a Nintendo 64 game that I played in a while, back when it came out. Oh man, do I really want to do that? No, I don't think so. Rush. Well, let's see. If I do this and put this in the barrel, then when we do this, can we bring that back is the question.
You're up now. Master.
Yeah, I've been giving some thought to actually pulling the trigger and getting a Nintendo Switch. That certainly would take a lot of my extra time up, though. Like, I'd have to be very careful to play just the 2 or 3 games I want to play, and that would be it. So also then that becomes a fairly expensive investment to say, oh, I'm actually only going to play I'm actually starting off from the assumption that I'm only going to play a small percentage of games.
I'll hit them with my cannon. Like now.
Interesting.
I need rest. You're up now.
Wow, that played weird. I usually don't cover Kotaku's articles, but here we have Peter Tierya's top 5 games of 2020, which pretty much this is the only top 5 games I saw at all. He gave Resident Evil 3. Okay, good. I agree with that. I didn't play Resident Evil, but I certainly could see the idea there. Do this. Do this. No, I don't want to do either one of those. See how this plays out.
I'll put an end to this awful dissonance.
Yeah. It's hard to have anything to say about Resident Evil 3 when you haven't played it, but I definitely do want to play it. Streets of Rage 4. This is a bit harder sell, but I would be willing to play Streets of Rage 4. Interesting, he has Yee's Memories of Celceta in this mix. If anything, I would say they have this video game journalist better than most video game journalists has included a Western focused Japanese game, a Western focused Japanese game, a Eastern focused Japanese game. Murder by Numbers, on the other hand, is a Western game that's designed, I think, to look like a Eastern game. Yakuza Like a Dragon, an Eastern focused game. Here you have a decent split of games, and not any real hardcore Western products in that mix, to the point where it might have been suspicious. But for 2020, can you really name that many Western games that deserve that level of success? Like, I don't know of anything that is a Western game just off the top of my head. Like, you're gonna start talking about things like Among Us or
Wait, it's slowing down.
something along those lines.
Want to play?
I'm ready for more.
Yeah,
What do we have here?
what I should do here.
Dare you?
That, like, nothing super objectionable there. No Last of Us. That's one of the things in particular that you would have seen. It's that a ton of people listed Last of Us. Here I cleaned out the Wikipedia, so best I could do was leave the left sidebar, which is fine until you hit this point, and then you just have a empty left side bar. It's at this point that they should redesign their articles. See, major events for games in 2020 is COVID-19 reactions to George Floyd and sexual misconduct accusations. I'm not here for any of that. I'm looking specifically just as far as what games would have deserved. I think Hades possibly deserves it. I think Half-Life Alyx deserves mentions. It's hard to just get down to a top 5 in particular. Like, does The Last of Us 2 really deserve to be ignored over, like, Murder by Numbers, a much smaller game? Like, that seems particularly unfair, and maybe personal list may just be personal list. Dragon Quest still getting fairly skipped, and I don't feel like Dragon Quest is particularly that bad. This list on Wikipedia, though, is a really, really short list. As far as the big games, but if I was to look at the wait, what does this do? Destroy 6 other random followers. Then if the enemy leader has 7 or more, do it until it drops to 6. There we go. I'm just gonna scroll down through the list of games that came out this year. Darksiders Genesis, not a game that is gonna succeed. That literally did nothing. That card. 10th anniversary of Bayonetta and Vanquish did come out for consoles, but I don't think that deserves. Like, if you start saying, well, old games that have been re-released in any year deserve to be the game of the year, that seems fairly unfair. I now have 300 short of the total points, 1,800 points, which would really just leave me with being able to get 700 points if I played a deck with no duplicates, which I'd have to build, or more likely defeat 10 different eternal followers, which just means drag out the game till the very end, which that seems like that might be doable now that you don't have the pressure of actually trying to ensure you get at least one victory. 2 Point Hospital came out and was kind of so early in the year it got forgotten. Black Mesa came out and people kind of forgot about that. Down to March so far. Vampire the Masquerade, Coteries of New York came out for the Nintendo Switch and other platforms. Like Disaster Report 4, Phantasy Star Online for the Xbox One. Umahari Kiwari Fresh came out. Like, these are definitely not games that I think deserve to be even considered for Game of the Year. On Fury, another game that doesn't deserve to be considered. Mafia 3 Definitive Edition. Mafia 2 Definitive Edition. Let's see. Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc Anniversary Edition came out for iOS and Android. Interesting, they're just referring to it as Droid now, not Android. Or, which that's just wrong. Like, Droid was the term Verizon used to reference to Android phones, and they licensed the phrase droid from George Lucas, but that was never the appropriate way to refer to an Android phone operating system. Shantae and the Seven Sirens or Bioshock Borderlands collections, none of that. Yeah, Command and Conquer Remastered Collection arguably deserves some mention as far as Game of the Year, because I feel like if you went back and thought about it, Command and Conquer Remastered is a collection of it is such a great game that it probably does deserve to be considered again more than many other games would.
This whip is an extension of myself.
Let's keep on scrolling down. I'm wasting extra time here. Duke Nukem 3D, not something that should be considered. So now I'm between July and September, looking at games that came out. Curse of the Moon 2, Bloodstained, not really. Deadly Premonition 2, not really. Rocket Arena is, I don't think, Rocket League.
Are you as excited as I am? Well, are you?
This was a mistake. I should have attacked then.
This whip is an extension of myself.
Do we want to try and evolve something here?
Go! Go! I'm sick of being a whoopsie daisy.
Let's go and kill that.
Ouch! I'm so excited.
Paper Mario, the Origami King. Don't think that deserves Crisis Remastered. In the same way Command and Conquer Remastered should be considered Crisis Remastered for the Nintendo Switch is probably not the right platform, but a Crisis re-release should be considered. Cuphead apparently came out for the PS4 this year, but at a certain point, do you consider games that may very well and almost certainly came out during other times, and these are just different ports? Yeah, I don't think you do consider ports. So it would have to be its initial release on its initial platform to be considered. Horizon Zero Dawn, another great example of that, came out on Windows, but it's hardly a new game. I'm surprised Flight Simulator didn't get more mention. It is such a niche game, I understand why it wouldn't have been mentioned, but honestly, it probably is one of the best games that came out in 2020. And I suppose it will be interesting to see what happens when Giant Bomb gets back together, assuming they are getting back together. I still wouldn't be surprised if they actually are just being shut down and they haven't been told, or they haven't told the public. Like, will they have Game of the Year conversations now that they're delaying that to the new year that have a longer that are affected by other Game of the Year conversations, or if they already had those conversations and they're just sitting on the footage. Definitely can't consider Leisure Suit Larry game for Game of the Year, or WWE 2K. That's not a realistic consideration.
This whip is an extension of myself.
Let's defile the battlefield.
Whipsy daisy!
That
You're up now.
and
I love
that.
chaos.
No way!
I might actually win here. I thought I was gonna lose. Serious Sam 4 can't be included. Genshin Impact. You might consider Genshin Impact. It would be a sad statement on where the world has gone as far as video games. But yeah, we might very well be considering Genshin Impact.
Engage in battle mode.
The Panzer Dragoon remake for PS4 maybe should have been considered. I'm a little surprised Spelunky 2 wasn't considered. There's several Walking Dead games that also came out. Super Mario 35 should have been considered for Game of the Year. And honestly, I think there's just a case where a lot of that stuff it does feel like a lot of that stuff is just not
Okay, this one's all me.
it doesn't have enough of a consistent appeal.
Dare you? The hunt is on.
Let's see. Well, this will win.
My best wasn't enough.
Wow. Clean sweep. And if I had killed that, this would have been a very interesting ending to a game, in that we would have literally had nothing on the field at all and nothing in either player's hands. Yeah, I think I still want to just play with these cards until we have some daily quests that tell us to do something different. Star Wars Squadrons really can't be considered. Remothered Broken Porcelain, no. Torchlight 3, no. That,
Everything dies one day.
I think the Minecraft spin-off RPG game also should be mentioned. I think it came out this year, and that would definitely be a no too. Already down to October. The Transformers game would be definitely a no. Control Ultimate Edition, no. No More Heroes 2 Desperate Struggle, maybe. But I think that's just a re-release on the Switch. Watchdog Legion would have been a AAA game, certainly that would have been under consideration if it was any good. It just wasn't any good. Let's see.
Let's have a look-see.
Pikmin 3 Deluxe is just a re-release. Shadowverse Champions Battle for the Nintendo Switch shouldn't be considered as... I would have liked to have kind of seen a review for that, but I don't think for a second it was going to be considered a great game.
I'll hit them with my
Assassin's Creed Valhalla arguably should have been considered and wasn't. Borderlands 3, I think maybe came out this year for everything, and it I think probably was fairly considered and then immediately dismissed. And right now, I think let's play. Let's do this. And then do that.
How dare you?
Devil May Cry Special Edition would be a no. Gears 5. See, a lot of these seem like they're Xbox Series X re-releases of games when you hit October. and so I don't think that counts. Astro's Playroom, I think, is a little bit overhyped, but it does have in that at least some reasoning and logic behind why it's so overhyped. Do this and do this.
Remember to pick up your arrows after each hunt. Let's pick that up. Let's pick that up.
And put that on the field. Now evolve.
You're done for.
Bug Snacks was a game that came out and kind of just died on the vine.
Check out this new technology.
Spider-Man Miles Morales, I think, is probably the only Western game that actually did come out in 2020. So it probably does deserve more mention than Murder by Numbers does. Let's see. Hold this.
The uncharted desert awaits.
And then this.
Remember to pick up your arrows after each hunt. Let's pick that up.
And I guess we'll end the turn there.
All I need's an opening and you're toast.
I feel like I may have gone through the list of all the games in 2020 already and might just be repeating myself, but yep. Atelier Ryza 2 came out and nobody played it as far as I've heard, which I think is part of the problem once again of covering a lot of these Eastern games.
I'm done. I need rest.
Right, do we want to evolve? I think we have to.
Got your
Pick
message
that up.
loud and
How's
clear.
taste?
There we go.
Do you know my master?
Now, let's have a look-see.
I'll hit them with my cannon. Like
Cyberpunk 2077 definitely can't get Game of the Year.
My magic alone isn't enough for them.
It almost certainly deserves in every list the most biggest disappointment of the year. Even for me, who kind of was cautiously optimistic based just on what I had been seeing. I felt like that was a possibility that Cyberpunk was going to turn out to be fairly disappointing. This, I feel like these have to either play or not play. Let's do that.
Only one way to find out. This calls for a taste test.
Say this.
The wind.
And do this.
Gotta follow my nose.
you're up now. This ends here.
It's so nice to have a deck like this where you are exhausting all of their cards.
Engaging battle.
I suppose it's also worth mentioning that the Sega the Sonic the Hedgehog and Monster Hunter movie came out in 2020. But yeah, not a lot of games, particularly Western games, came out this year that deserve to be in the top 10. And that's probably in part why there's been minimal controversy and minimal complaint. Certainly other people are busy with other things, but too, but there is, I think, an argument to be made to say that they just didn't even bother to try and irritate people that much with obnoxious
Got to roll in
awards,
style.
because
Hands up! You crusty
like
horse, hands
giving
up!
an award to Last of Us
Depleted.
Got to
was
roll in
frankly expected
Gotta follow
by
my
most
rules.
people. So yeah, that was kind of pointless meandering. We have a game on Steam here called Cabaret 4 Card, which looks like a cell phone game for $9.99, English, Chinese, and Japanese. It's nothing. I don't know if Cabaret really plays that way or not. There we go. And there.
My best wasn't enough.
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Der Blau Diamond, which sounds like it's a German RPG Maker game. English not supported, 4.19, German only. Okay. Does not look interesting, so I don't feel any tragic loss there. And we are just powering through this, which is fine. Like, that just saves me time. If I get all these single quests done now, at a certain point, if I get all the single quests down and there's just no reason to continue to play the single quests, I could go and do the story quest. That is one of the things that Destiny Child has gotten a little bit more tricky, is that they've added quests to do different types of things, and for the previous expansion, the Christmas expansion, there were characters you were getting a lot of copies of that you were supposed to turn into dust, basically. Dust in the sense that you would use them for to build up the skills of the other characters. And I didn't realize that's what you were supposed to do with them. So I was using these extra characters to give me levels and level up the characters, which is a little bit more important, I think, initially than skilling up a character. It's and so I missed some rewards I could have gotten. Now every expansion, there are a lot of rewards you can't get unless you spend money, but this was one that I could have gotten. And then the newest expansion has some new items that you can purchase with in-game currency to give you other things, to potentially give you things that are way more valuable. The theme is a Japanese K-pop like stage production, like K-pop concert, and so you're collecting these different glow sticks that in K-pop concerts everybody's waving their glowing sticks around to the beat.
Suppose I'll take that.
Okay, do we want to evolve this?
You were done for.
Suppose it's no big deal.
Don't bother fighting back. Excuse me.
Hmm.
Excuse me.
Dare you?
Excuse me.
Next we have a game on Steam called The Grim Ending, which seems to be a point-and-click adventure game. It seems fairly simplistic. It's $14.99 English only. I just don't know if there's enough visual polish here for a point-and-click adventure. Even as a sucker for point-and-click adventure games, I just don't think I see enough background artwork or visual polish. I don't trust, if I'm not seeing visual polish, I don't trust that I'm going to see actual quality quality writing either.
It won't be long now.
Time to appraise your worth. Are you worth your weight in gold?
Excuse me.
Who will be my victim today? Are you worth your weight in gold?
Why did this not draw a card? Because it only draws a card when it clashes. Ah.
All I need's an opening, and you're
Next, we have a game on Steam called Hero Spirit, which just looks like an RPG game of no interest. $4.97. Nothing there interests me. That visual aspect is really, really a turn off visually to me. Right. Let's do this.
Work is never a waste of time.
Okay, 6.
I'll cleave you in two.
And give myself 6 points.
I'm here, just like I said in my tip-off note. An honest day's work.
That,
Got your message loud and clear.
and then
I'm
that.
here, just like I said in my tip-off note. An honest day's work.
And then
We won't give him an inch.
was a little bit short, but I can win next turn. Lib Retro's been tweeting up some things. They installed new servers, and DOSBox Pure is now out for Android, Mac, and Windows, although it seems like some of RetroArch is still trying to be approved by Google as far as Android. New architecture, new servers means faster build times, more platform support, and faster, stable releases. I'm not exactly. Wow, I actually did lose. I'm not really sure how. But let's actually go back and see if our bonus points are gone now. Nope. So apparently, once you unlock bonus points, you always have bonus points. Let's see, it wants me to have 16,000, and I already have 11,000 points to collect everything. And the quest missions in total would have given us not 16,000 by any means. 2,000, 31,000, 49,000. Let's keep it interesting and play a different character just to get bonus points. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how it does work as far as
You must die.
Nothing personal, but I won't hold back.
but yeah, it probably is just a complicated system of a bunch of virtual machines running a bunch of different versions of operating systems and trying to build running the build commands on those virtual machines. Or maybe not virtual machines, maybe they literally have actual machines that they're building code for, and they're trying to see if they get errors in the build process.
Too slow.
But I don't know what software or what the implementation of that is to have those kind of test servers. I severely doubt it is a case of just manually doing it.
Oh, this model comes with everything.
That was bad. LibRetro also put out that the new versions for the Play Store, please read. Back in August, they were no longer able to update RetroArch to the newest version because the Google Play Store policies had changed in regards to whether the use of externally hosted dynamic library files. after that, they suffered a crippling BuildBot server hack, which really set us back. I guess BuildBot might be the name of the software. So they haven't been able to address the situation for a while. So now you have RetroArch on the Google Play Store. There's no core downloader. You have to select from 50 hand-curated libretro cores from within the application. Play Store is updated twice a week, possibly more. And then there's RetroArch Plus, in that it is built for OS 8 of Android. You have access to 127 cores instead. So, let's see. We no longer care about the non-Play Store version having to be uploaded to Google Play. We no longer have to make sure that it stays within the 100 megabyte threshold. That is one of the problems with installing libretro on a cell phone, though, is you are going to take up more space than you normally would expect.
Who will be my victim today? Are you worth your weight in gold?
Oops.
Too slow.
Oh dear.
So,
Is that a human?
I've got you now.
you can still sideload cores,
Sticking my head in the clouds.
but the real trick here is to get RetroArch Plus instead. Which is funny because even RetroArch Plus seems like it is still on Google Play, so So actually, I don't think you want even RetroArch Plus. I think what you want is the non-Play Store version, which inherently I think that might be the case for any emulator software that you were going to have on your cell phone.
My king.
Oh, I forgot that this guy reduces damage.
Fleeting spark.
I better get a bonus for this.
Yeah, it says right now to get the non-Play Store, you have to go to the website, but they don't even point on their website like a link to it, which is interesting.
My resolve spurs me forward.
Sorry, I'm going quiet here reading articles.
Pathetic.
Oh, why'd it have to be a clear day?
So if I was to go over here to libretro
You wouldn't.
and click like get started, the page says oops, page not found. Click home. It seems that's working, but seemingly, let's look under downloads. There we go. Libretro then takes you to RetroArch's page. So you go to RetroArch, and then you come over here to platforms, and they oddly are still supporting Windows 95. Then you go to Android, and then I guess you'd go to download. Then it would just start downloading it. interesting. It doesn't specifically break between a 64-bit and the 32-bit. I'm not even sure what the real difference between a 64-bit and a 32-bit version of an emulator software would really do. It's probably slightly helpful to go with 64-bit, but the core differences between 32-bit and 64-bit for software that is just emulating what is probably 8-bit code, if not 16-bit, maybe you get up to 32-bit on some of those emulators, is questionable. So, yep. Let's keep moving forward. Here we have a game on Steam called Lucky Heroes, which just looks like a RPG game of no real interest. Not out yet, English and Korean. Next we have a game called Silly Fun Valley, which looks like it's a kid-friendly point-and-click adventure. It does have some polish to it, though. It's free. It's English only. So, this might be the beginning of several silly fun games that they plan on releasing, and they're trying to just establish. I'll put it on the follow list. We'll see what people who've played it for free think. Suppose it is possible that a lot of companies could have put out games as advertisements for the new year as just a free giveaway. It really wouldn't have been a bad holiday gift, New Year gift to do. They probably should have released, if you were going to give away a free game, release something right around Cyberpunk 2077's disappointment time.
You look kinda haunted. No, literally.
Let's see.
I want to get it all back.
TechRaptor has an article here recapping TechRaptor in 2020 growth. Let's see. They hired a number of people, bringing them up to 17 new writers over the course of 2020. Which, yeah, it did definitely feel like they were growing as a smaller, still kind of mainstream video game journalist site. They still feel like they aren't covering as many bits of news or as many games as possible, but they're not crazy about doing a bad job either. They mostly managed to not be annoying. Except for the worst part of, I would say, about TechRaptor is they're just kind of moving over to tabletop reviews, and that being slightly confusing is still an issue. They seem to have dropped the whole KechRaptor joke where they would put out fake news, and like I assume that they got that message that was not acceptable to literally put out fake news.
Aren't you popular?
Even if you are just joking.
I'm coming for you. Detestable.
Oh dear.
1,
Detestable.
2,
Detestable.
3. But yeah, the partnership with Nutaku is weird still with TechRaptor, in that they're always promoting the adult games on Nutaku, and yet not really covering any of the other adult games of which there's plenty that come out for other sites. or even things on Steam, which if you're gonna say, well, they're willing to cover adult games on Steam like they cover other games on Steam, that would be more in line with their footage and their content. Yeah. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Anagrams, where this almost looks interesting in that you're dragging around bits of letters to spell something, but I don't really feel like that changes it enough. Letter matching puzzles. Let's see. See if we can get some actual footage of how it plays. Yeah, you drag around letters and you match. It's almost like just any other matching game, just this time it has letters in it. $7.99, English only, 23 achievements. This particular winter sale, more than any previous one, has forced me to it really has forced me to reconsider the usefulness of Steam trading cards, in that I just sold all the trading cards. I didn't even want to be a part of that system. This sale, I was just not interested in it, and I think that may very well be my out, in which I just won't do trading cards anymore, and I'm just gonna sell them all as soon as I could get them. But in particular, that also means I did not check the curator feed that they want you to follow, where they specifically want you to look at new games, and they were willing to give you let's see, what can we do here? Put this on the field, and then do this, and then do this, and then end the turn. So I definitely could have gotten more curated trading cards and sold them. Didn't even bother. Moving on, we have a game called Durka Simulator, which just looks like a joke game. English is not supported, Russian only. Okay. 4 mech followers onto the field. Let's see, hit this. And then let's see, what can we do? Just attack here and attack here, and then just do that, and then I can win.
You surpassed my expectations.
TechRepto has an interesting article here. 20 games that turned 20 in 2020. The Sims, Ridge Racer, Marvel Capcom, Kirby 64, Majora's Mask, Perfect Dark, StarCraft 64, Diablo 2, Final Fantasy 9, Paper Mario, Dino Crisis 2, Tony Hawk Pro Skating 2, Army Man, Sarge's Heroes 2, Marvel Combat Flight Simulator, Command & Conquer Red Alert 2, Time Splitters, Counter-Strike. It's interesting that both Command & Conquer Red Alert 2, which I think is in the collection, and Time Splitters got re-releases, remasters, and one was a low-effort garbage re-release, and one was very much well-received. Although, maybe it wasn't Time Splitters. That may not have been the game I'm thinking about, actually. It's not... 13 was the game I'm thinking about, which is definitely a different experience. And we still have like no new quests. Yeah, I'm like 6 hours away, well, 4 hours. I can get daily missions, and that's about it. So it's the problem with trying to do things off screen, is it does not give you a clear direction. But whatever. We'll just do this until we've collected everything. Counter-Strike 1, a Hitman 40, codename 46, it turned 20, Banjo-Tooie, the sequel to Banjo-Kazooie, Episode 1, Star Wars Episode 1, Battle for Naboo, which is probably an easy one to confuse with some other Star Wars game. Yeah, every year they should probably do that, but also at a certain point, I think every year they probably should go who turned 30 in 2020, or is 20 years old for a game a particularly good milestone to set everything at. I think if you go too high, because like Mario 35 is celebrating like the 35th anniversary of Mario, Super Mario Brothers 1, so that's 35's too high for most games. 20 probably is about the right settings. Feels like TechRaptor probably should do some catch up and cover some older games, and that would certainly, as an editorial decision, allow them to say, all right, every year now we're going to talk about games that turn 20, and then we're going to have a second segment throughout the course of the year in which we go in maybe more depth and talk about games that are older than 20 years old. Let's see.
Allow me to bestow a kiss. As promised, you don't
There we
belong
go.
here.
Next, we have an article on Steam. No, we've got a game on Steam called Rig Miners, which doesn't look like it's enough of a game. It's a space game where you're flying around and trying to land on asteroids in an asteroid belt. It's ring miners, not rig miners. You have this table of elements, periodic elements everywhere. Yeah, it just doesn't feel like there's enough of a game here. You have to try and land on the asteroids and then drive around and mine them. It's early access. It's $9.99. It's English only. It's just not interesting enough.
Pain and suffering are what I live for.
Melt under my touch. You don't belong here.
Let's go ahead and evolve this one.
Safety is for the
There we go.
slowing
This announcement was a little surprising that day one they've listed Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, but it's just listed as coming soon, but you can apparently pre-purchase it. And here we've got trailers just trying to hype it. I suppose it's not a terrible thought to try and hype a game that might be particularly good or particularly well received, but it might also just go the way of Cyberpunk, so you want to be fairly careful. I assume the idea was to start the hype now and get attention when there's probably not a lot of competition. I'm just gonna wait a turn
You
and
don't
kill that. Let's try this again.
an opening and you're toast.
I guess it falls on me to take
A
a
lot of these screenshots are kind of dark screenshotty for a AAA game or something that's try and sell itself as a AAA game. I think vampire games in particular are going to have that problem. This guy does not look particularly like the bad guy I think I would want in a vampire game, but I'm not sure how much of your experience really is going to have to do with the main bad guy. Like, I think most people's experience with Bloodlines 1 probably had very little to do with the main bad guy. Yeah, if anything, I desperately need to play the first game before I even think about playing the second game. It definitely feels like a game series that is only going to benefit from having more people, or from it's only going to benefit people who play the original game. I need to hurry up, man. I wanted to go short today. Every stream I say I want to go short, and then it just never happens. Tech Raptor has an article here. Best game music of 2020, Doom Eternal. Fair enough. Like, was Doom Eternal a 2020 game? Does it really deserve to be in the top 10? Probably not. In a weird way, the idea of giving awards for best music or something like that is almost a great way to reward a game that in its core product is actually deficient. And maybe that's how the movie awards have always worked too. Maybe they give like best art direction and things like that to things they want to give awards to, but they know aren't perfect movies or great movies. Of course, in the case of movie awards, almost all of that feels like it's nepotism anyway, so I'm not sure they're even being that intellectually honest about their decisions. Next, we have a game on Steam called Loop Worlds, which is just a box pushing, low effort, bad graphics game. $2.54 English only. I could have curated some stuff, obviously, today. I kept getting the feeling that we really didn't have that many games announced either. Here we have a game called Gunwitch, which, yeah, looks like nothing. And then you have a character here that is animated completely different than this is, so you know that's asset flipped. English only, apparently free to play with some DLC.
Is it edible? Only one way to find out.
Oh, Kookaroo's gonna blast him.
Gematsu has an article here. Muv-Love Project Mikhail has launches in early access in April of 2021. Let's see. Muv-Love sounds like a visual novel, but in actuality, I think it's more of a hack and slash mech game with perhaps a small section. Small sections where you might see some anime girls at some point, although the game does not even seem to be showing any of that. No real focus at all. It may just be straight up a you always are in the mech type experience. There's a YouTuber who's not a video game YouTuber who was recommended some more of the Japanese style games for his daughters to play, his teenage daughters, and I'm anxiously listening here to find out his reactions, because the daughters are certainly not gonna appreciate, and they have vocalized that they don't appreciate the lewd anime art style. There's like one character that seems to be big busted. I don't think this is a case where somebody has just totally trolled him. Like, I think this is more of a case of it is, there's one character that's big busted, but they don't show any nudity or even implied nudity. It's just the character has big busts, which at a certain point then that says something about how the daughters have been socialized, that they are I guess body shaming the fictional animated characters. On the other hand, you also kind of have to admit that it was an artist that almost certainly drew the character that way. But at a certain point, then you also, I guess the phrase is better described as preference shaming someone for drawing a character based on your own preferences. But I'm not gonna certainly blame a teenage girl for having it. It's weird to tell a teenage girl to play Japanese style games anyways. So, but also this YouTuber is kind of notorious for being more hands off with his kids than he probably should be, in my opinion. And so I think he's in this current times relearning relearning like how much responsibility he should take in the situation. I think he is, like a lot of fathers, often absentee in decisions and parenting. And yeah, I don't know what I would do, particularly if I was if I had kids that I was in charge of, that I was gonna I was gonna potentially recommend video games to. Well, actually, I do know what I would do because I've done it before. Yeah, I bend over backwards to recommend only very, very kid-friendly games. I don't want anything that even begins to feel like it is not age appropriate, and I kind of constantly want to try and check myself to know what what is appropriate for each person, each kid, because some kids are different, but then also kids will try and tell you they're different when you should know better. So yeah, I would mostly say play Lego games and some of the Disney games, and then mostly, I've said it on my channel for years, there's not a lot of other games to recommend, and pushing kids down the route of anime and the anime art style in games is probably a terrible thought. Like, I don't think you can do it until they're 14, 15, or 16 at best. You almost certainly want this to be something that they learn from someone else, and so you don't have to take the blame for it. And sure, there are like shows like Cardcaptor Sakura that are totally kid focused and in my opinion kid friendly, but you show them Cardcaptor Sakura, you got to be very careful that they don't then watch something like Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is not age appropriate for someone who should be watching Cardcaptor Sakura, or Cardcaptors, perhaps. That would be the better one to watch. There we go.
Don't trifle with the next. I'll strike true. You're up now.
At a certain point, I guess a lot of it also just comes down to involvement. It's a slightly different story if you're sitting on the couch next to your kid when they're watching an R-rated movie versus them just being handed an R-rated movie or being allowed to watch R-rated movies because the parents don't aren't there to give the emotional support and help mentally to process things that they might need, and very often won't need, but it's just being the rock for a child, being the source of security mentally, can be very, very helpful.
This toasty posty will warm your heart.
And I assume that the daughter will grow out of any issues she has or rolling her eyes as far as big busted characters. Or maybe she won't, but I hopefully she doesn't indicate a generation of Karens that are potentially, like, we really don't want to see a whole nother generation of people trying to play video games for everything and anything and try to censor video games. And I would hope that the next generation of video game fans have seen where that leads and would not push for more of that or support that kind of action. I'm starting to lose here, which is fine. I was massively on a win streak, so no big deal to lose. Moving on. For PlayStation 4, Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yabi, Hinokami Kaputan? I don't know how you do the elongated U. News is in the near future. Development is going well. This is the Demon Slayer anime. This was the thing where a bunch of people who didn't even know what they were talking about complained and wanted to censor his earrings because they said this was the Land of the Rising Sun flag, which is not even the flag that was used in World War II by the Japanese. So that is just like a push from ignorance for censorship, and seemingly they did not buy into any of that, which is good. Otherwise, it's a anime about a guy running around slaying demons, and then there's a very popular, like, cute anime half demon girl that he rescues and saves and treats her kind of like a little sister. That's fairly popular, and you probably, if you are in the watch enough anime, have seen it, where this anime demon girl has this bamboo like mouth guard around her to stop her from biting people.
I'm here, just like I said in my tip-off note.
Moving on. Let's see. TechRaptor has Stalker 2 first in-engine footage, introducing a new protagonist. I'm a little surprised to hear the Stalker series is only up to Stalker 2. I would have thought that there would have been more Stalker games. I probably am just confusing Stalker with the Metro series, or yeah. And even the Metro series, I think, probably is a confused series at this point, since the latest game got them out of the Metro tunnels. TechRaptor has a weekly rewind, latest gaming news, episode 5. So apparently they're trying to do a more kind of YouTube content. That's interesting. How did they get this theme where the play button was green like TechRaptor? Interesting. This isn't actually a YouTube video. So yeah, there's just like a whole YouTube article here, and you can see that they're talking about a new Yu-Gi-Oh show with a new Yu-Gi-Oh games. I hadn't heard anything about that. Well, I think if I'm going to consistently follow TechRaptor, though, they're going to have to figure out a way to break down their articles. If they're going to do a recap video, they need to make sure all of these articles show up as individual articles, because I'm not willing to commit a whole hour a week to listening to them recap things I should have already have heard.
You wouldn't.
Gematsu has an article here. Tsukihime Remake launches in summer of 2021 in Japan for the PS4 and Switch. Let's see, a piece of Blue Glass Moon. What is this game? It's tagged as a visual novel. Let's see, yep. It looks like it's a visual novel, and then, like all these trailers, they look very nice, but that doesn't inherently mean much of anything. Two Thieves or Evolve.
My resolve stays in place.
Okay.
How dare you!
TechRaptor has an article here. Hollow Knight Silksong release date is still to be announced, which is basically news of nothing. But I guess that means that they are delayed. You have a game on Steam called Rocket Golf, which doesn't look polished enough. $9.99 English and a bunch of other languages. See, the crazy part about this is just about the time I'm done streaming today, I'll have to do all kinds of off-screen playing, which I guess we very well may reset everything by Monday as long as I don't play a lot on the weekend, but I may very well play a lot on the weekend too.
Don't forget.
TechRaptor has an article here. Anno Mutationium, Mutationium, I don't know how you'd pronounce that. It's not a real word. Delays the PlayStation versions to Q3 of 2021. TechRaptor has this article. The Chinese gaming CEO Lin Kuai, I don't know how you pronounce Kuai in Chinese, was possibly killed by poison. The question, of course, is if the police are investigating it, then was he poisoned by somebody, some competitor, some other person? Like, I don't know if there's a specific reason. Unlike Russia, China is not known for doing things in secret and poisoning people. The government is, so I can't really blame the government on this one, unless they're just taking a new playbook, because it would certainly have been fairly easy in China for them to have trumped up charges and thrown people in jail. In fact, two non-video game stories is, I think, one of the scientists who announced COVID was thrown in jail, and the Chinese government is like guarding a bat cave where they think the pandemic came from, not allowing any scientists to get in there, which certainly then brings back to mind the conspiracy theories that it was not actually a virus that came directly from a freestanding wet market, but actually was a virus that had been discovered in nature and then brought to a lab close to Wuhan and then accidentally released from that lab. Not that the virus had been modified, but it also certainly could expand on that conspiracy theory to say maybe this was a virus found in nature and then modified, or to become even more novel and dangerous. Like, you can certainly go down that deep well, and any lack of
I want to get it all back.
cooperation that the Chinese government gives certainly can feed into those kind of conspiratorial thoughts. But yeah, to get back to poisoning someone in China, that sounds more personal, or business, or personal reasons would be my guess. In particular, Asian countries tend not to have a scenario where it's the individuals that are important. So, like, getting rid of a CEO and poisoning them doesn't make a lot of sense unless you're trying to get rid of a CEO to replace him with someone else that's more, like, friendly to your cause.
The uncharted desert awaits. The uncharted desert awaits. What do we have here?
Wait, it's slowing down.
Next, we have a game on Steam here called Arcus, which looks to be a little polygonal, but not terrible. There's a lot of polish here. They're calling it a third-person shooter, but there's a lot of animation. And that's the weird thing, is that it feels like it's kind of just all over the place. There's some nice little cutscenes that make it look like a real game, but then when you get into the actual combat, it kind of seems to lack a user interface, almost like it's QuickTime events. It's free, it's English only. Maybe it's a student project. I'm gonna put this on the follow list just to see how people like it, because this is what I think the real game is maybe a stand in one place tower defense game with just a lot of cutscenes. Let's see. Pudding time. What does pudding time do?
I want to get it all back.
Should I put this on the field? I think we hold back. Next we have a game on Steam called Kill the Pineapple, which looks like it's just a nothing game. $4.99. Just kind of looks like a joke with some dark screenshots. The visual polish isn't terrible. It's just there's nothing there that interests me. Hit that, and then evolve this, and hit that. Next we have a game called Faircroft's Antiques Home for Christmas. This is obviously a hidden object game. It's not from HH Games or Big Fish Games this time. $4.89 from a Boom Zap, which arguably, at a certain rate, if we start to have 4 or 5 different companies putting out hidden object games once a week, that's going to be a lot. But still nowhere as bad as the number of visual novels that come out, and that may just be the way the market goes anyways, is that there will always be a lot of people putting out a lot of games. Perhaps to the point where I can no longer look at every single game that comes out. I'm trying still to stick to that. Here we have a game called Island Enhanced Weeps, which seems to be some kind of asset flip game that looks like it's trying to be like a trainer, but I don't even think that's what it is. $11.99 English only, nothing there of interest. Let's see, 4 different mech things. We'll do this.
May we walk hand in hand to death apart.
Okay.
I long for you.
Ammunition depleted.
Let's see.
Isn't love amazing?
Enhancements to the suit.
Well, that worked way better than I thought it was going to. If anything, I shouldn't have attacked the other guy. Alright, let's do this. There's nothing to do, it's just win.
My best wasn't enough.
See, next we have a game on Steam called Jedi Siege, which begs an interesting question about whether Jedi can be copyrighted. I think it probably does have an argument to be copyrighted. $11.99, English only. This looks like nothing. I got to rank 60 with Luna. And let's see how far we are as far as the rewards are. There's still a decent amount of stuff. It would be very, very easy to drop the ball and not get all these reward points. Okay, I can see the beginning of the end now. Here we have a VR World War II battlefield experience game.
Time to get started.
It almost feels like a museum experience where you just click and load into other videos. I don't know if that's even the case or whether you just click in to see images. It's $2.99, which is really, really cheap for VR. It says it supports a bunch of languages. I kind of want something like this to actually be true, and that this is an illegitimate attempt at a museum in VR. But I don't think that really is. I think this is just asset flipping things and trying to pretend like there's a game here without really having to program anything. Yeah, I don't have enough faith that that's a actual game. Here we have a game on Steam called Fortress Volume Version 2. It's a little surprising I said volume there. I would think that my default would be version. I deal with more versions than I do volumes. This game is early access, $9.99, third-party EULA, Korean full audio, and several other languages, including English, Chinese, and Japanese. But you don't see a lot of that. You can also see it's already mixed, and yeah, it does not look like anything that would interest me.
Let's have a look.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Scrapping Simulator, which seems to be what? Early access, $7.19, English only, third-party EULA. It's like scrapping electronics, but there's just not going to be a lot of polish visually there, and almost certainly that means there's not going to be a lot of detail and accuracy there either.
You don't belong here.
Let's see. And the real question, I suppose, is how many people actually would want to or do scrap things. See, this is something that I imagine third world countries probably take apart devices and try to scrap the internals a lot. And certainly if you had a consistent flow of computers, you would scrap the inside of the computers for their cases, for their RAM, for their CPUs, for their video cards, and potentially try and sell those on eBay. Or something like that, or use those components to repair other computers. but that is only if you can have a computer shop, basically. A computer shop that's getting a bunch of computers gifted to them, and a computer shop that actually can succeed in the fact that that a lot of locations simply you can't succeed as running a computer shop because people just don't want to pay the amount of money that you would need to be paid to fix a computer instead of buying a new computer.
Check out my fancy footwork.
Let's see. Is there anything we can do? Hit that. And that. Yeah, Scrapping Simulator really just feels like it is PC Building Simulator even worse. And PC Building Simulator itself still has problems in that it doesn't support enough components for the price tag. This is $7.19, and yeah. And honestly, if you're going to scrap electronics in a third world country, I assume you're going to probably just grind up all the silicon and melt it down for gold components. I don't think you're going to try and maintain things as they are and spend the extra effort to test it and make sure it's safe, and then spend the extra effort to try and sell it. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called 44 Minutes in Nightmare, which looks like a dark screenshot horror game. Early access, $5.09, English and Japanese. I've still have yet to run into a game I've labeled as a dark screenshot game and felt like I made a mistake there. Like, if they can't make their screenshots visible, then they probably won't make the rest of the game visible. Let's see. Do this. That.
Get ready to fly.
Hit that.
I'm done. I need rest.
Okay, this one's all me.
Let's go ahead and
Time to dance.
attack here. Next we have a game called Mission Idle, which almost certainly is an idle game of no real interest, although it kind of looks more like an RPG. It's $1.79, English only. Right, summon another one, or wait 5 more turns.
This whip is an extension of myself.
Defile the battlefield. I love
That was the right move.
my best wasn't enough.
See, next we have a game on Steam here called Harvest Green, which looks like a either really old Japanese game or I would suspect Chinese game for just the massive amount of text there and no other indication of actual gameplay. They're calling it a life sim JRPG. It's $6.29. It's Japanese and Chinese, so full audio in Japanese does indicate it's probably a Japanese game. Which, yeah, it's definitely not a game I would want to play. It just looks really, really slow and boring. And maybe that is an indication that as a Westerner, my imagination has just been shot and I need everything to be flashy and pretty. But on the other hand, that's the thing that I liked about anime in the first place, is that it was flashy and pretty.
Don't forget, everything dies one day.
Next we have a game called Cyber Anti, which looks like it's a collection of terribly animated mini games. $1.99 English only, nothing there. Next, we have a game on Steam called Break the Sky, which seems to probably be an asset flip game. Like, you're just walking around with an axe. They're not showing us any enemies. Alright, so the video's showing like one enemy in a huge area, and it's just a zombie, and it's a dark screenshot. This is $29.99 English only. Yeah. That does not encourage anything. It does kind of feel like it's inspired by something like System Shock, but kind of fails me visually. Lib Retro put out a video on their YouTube channel called Watching Movies with RetroArch. It displays footage from Ghost in the Shell, so the anime, so I won't show it, but it has the Linux package FFmpeg, I think. Yeah, that's it. As a core, which is the default group of libraries to play music and video files. And so it's an interesting thought, certainly. I don't know why specifically you would have a system so locked down where you could play emulators but you couldn't play videos with other software. But if you are in that case, or if you just want to use a controller perhaps to watch videos, that is an option. And that's interesting.
Remember to pick up your arrows after each hunt.
It doesn't particularly do anything really crazy other than the fact that you can use the video shaders that you would use to perhaps change the images for a game to make it look more realistic or different. They also apply, and it seems like you can change the color space that it works in, which that is slightly interesting. Two.
The uncharted desert awaits.
Right.
The uncharted desert awaits.
Let's pick that up, Pick that up. Post haste.
I don't like that some of these cards
Let's have a look-see.
basically become super annoying about saying the same phrases over and over again.
My magic alone isn't enough for them.
Best of luck to you.
But I have more
See, and this is what I'm talking about as far as adult games, and I guess this one adult game resets our counter as far as adult games being leased or released on Steam.
But it's home. For the town's prosperity.
This here ranch will never know thanks.
For the town's prosperity.
There we go. So we have a game here called the Traveler's Photo Album, which is like a hidden object game. And this is how I feel Steam should be. It's got sexual content and nudity, obviously, and they've just blurred out everything. I don't care if they use the white blur and the glow. I don't care if they use black bars. I don't care if it says too hot for Steam and they want to get fancy with it. I feel like all screenshots of adult games, even if you're clicking yes, show me this stuff, should be in this fashion when being depicted on Steam. I just think that's the right way to go. And if it's good for the, in my opinion, it's good for the seller as much as it is for Steam, because the seller's then not showing off all the parts that people would probably want to see and pay for the game for in the first place. As for a Traveler's Photo Album as a game, it's 69 cents. It's English, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. I don't think there's anything particularly special about it. I can say here in the description they've shown some bigger images. They are getting really big as far as showing the images of these characters, and they've just actively cropped them so it doesn't show anything. I guess the real question is, do you want to pay 69 cents for what would probably be a fairly low effort adult game?
Hey, it's slowing down.
I imagine there are people out there that would say sure on that, and I can't really blame them too much if they did, because you're not paying a lot, you know what you're getting into, and you're probably going to get what you paid for, which is to say not much. Next we have a game on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian letters. Apparently it's called Subliminal Region, which, okay. I'm not seeing a lot of people, so it might be a Chinese visual novel. Let's see, English is not supported, $29.99, Japanese only. Okay, well, doesn't seem like a lot of people, a lot of interaction. And if we were to come back and look, this lady is drawn with a very round face. And this guy is probably overdrawn for the number of people shown. Doesn't feel like you get a lot of different people that you're going to interact with. This may very well not be a visual romance visual novel as much as it's something else.
Another successful delivery.
There we go. And
My
win.
best wasn't enough.
Twitch is still having issues. We're investigating with the site not loading correctly. Thank you for your patience. They've resolved the issue. Last issue was on the 19th, so they almost went 10 days. Yeah. If I was going to have done any end of the year content, it probably would have better behooved a lot of people, including me, to have done what I'd like to see in 2021 versus the best of 2020, and look forward instead of back.
Everything dies
Like,
one day.
there is kind of a long laundry list of things I'd like to have seen, I'd like to see improved as far as YouTube and Twitch in 2021. Instead of potentially just having yet another adpocalypse that's manufactured to happen in the next month or so. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Space Cats Tactics Prologue. We've not seen a lot of demos lately, so maybe they're not emphasizing that anymore. This game is free as a demo, English only. Doesn't look like anything of interest. Yeah, it doesn't really feel like Steam had a complete thought there, and that they promoted a lot of people to make demos, and then there was seemingly no big announcement as far as why demos are the new hotness, as it were. My thought pattern was that Steam was going to be a little bit more restrictive as far as giving out refunds, as far as its 2 hours no question asked policy if you made a demo instead, but there seems to have been no confirmation of that speculation at all. So it kind of feels like maybe Steam does just have enough power to ask people to do things, and they will do it, even if there's not really a good reason for that. It might also be a case where Xbox and Sega, Xbox and Sony PlayStation are both pushing demos so much that it's just becoming more of an industry standard. Tech Raptor has a review here for a game called Don't Be Afraid, which looks like a horror wander around game. Got some crazy looking characters. They give it a 7.0. Don't Be Afraid is a great psychological thriller game that will put you against formidable enemies in terrifying locations. Though at times the game can be a bit glitchy and the pacing can feel off, Hydra Games did a great job in creating an immersive world for you to explore with memorable characters. Pros are interesting level design, challenging enemies, great voice acting, and engaging puzzles. Cons are too short, but I still gave it a 7.0, which is to say that's below average as far as a game, and I would pretty much dismiss any game like this. This is just not enough. Just doesn't feel like it's enough.
You're done for.
Hold up your swords with pride.
Alright. What do we want to do here?
Do not fear the enemy.
Guess attack
Wait,
that,
it's slowing down.
and then attack that. I could have attacked that without any danger at all.
Taking the shot. Taking the shot.
Next we have a game on Steam called Exodium. I suppose that's how you pronounce that.
Transformation complete.
Episode 1. Just looks like it's some asset flips. Very bright images that they're jumping through incredibly fast. It's not like I have double speed going on these videos. That is just jumping around because it has nothing to really say or show. It's $1.99. It's French only. Alright, let's see this.
Dull work is never a waste of time.
And then
Won't be
this.
long now.
Wood or enemy troops, I'll chop through them all.
So I can kill this.
I'll cleave you in two. Not enough enhancements to the suit.
And do that.
Troops, get ready for war.
And then play that.
Press on.
You're up now.
Next we have a game on Steam called Chat Million Steam Stream Quiz Game, which is nothing. $4.97 English.
I ship the fuels where they need to go.
DOSBox Pure is now available for Mac x64 on their BuildBot, as Libretro is building more versions of their
Let's speed things up.
cores and emulators. Which at a certain point, it really isn't their cores.
Too slow.
It's a collaborative effort. So there's probably a DOSBox Pure team that is
The pleasure was all mine.
that is separate from Libretro. Honestly, I don't really know who Libretro is as an entity. Is it a corporation? Is it a single person? And probably the better I don't. And probably the better they don't let on. Could be very well that a lot of the RetroArch Libretro stuff is done by just a small handful of people. Next we have a game on Steam called Spaghetti 2 Al Dente Chapter,
Everyone dies one day.
which is obviously a joke troll game. $9.99 English only. Next we have a game on Steam called Into the Pyramid, which is a top-down dungeon crawler. Free to play, English only, nothing visually interesting. Guess we'll just play that. This should be our last game.
I find inspiration.
Let's see. Here we have a game called Deadly Maze, which is just an asset flip game. It's nothing. $2.99, allegedly full audio for every single language they can think of. Let's see. Almost done here.
I'll hit them with my cannon. Like pow!
Next, we have a game on Steam called Frontline World War II, which looks like a board game. We don't see a lot of them. X-based board game. There's a decent amount of visual polish on this too. It's nice to see anything that even looks slightly acceptable. 1079, bunch of languages. I'm going to put this on the follow list. It certainly has a lot of things going against it, and I could easily imagine it doesn't make it to the wish list, but it's better than a lot of the other things we've seen.
I'm done. I need rest.
All I need's an opening and you're toast.
Let's see. Komatsu has an article here. Harvest Moon One World adds an Xbox One version. Okay. Let's see.
Got your message loud and clear.
You're up now. I'll hit them with my cannon. Like pow! You're up.
There we go.
I'm done. I need rest.
Check out this new technology.
See, next we have a game on Steam called Time Walker Tower Defense, which looks like nothing. $3.99, English only.
You look kinda
Do
haunted.
that,
No,
do
literally.
that,
Did I want gold again?
do that.
All I need's an opening and you're toast.
Next we have a game on Steam called Robo Squire, which looks like a
But the time for games is
low polygon racing game with no interest. Early access, $8.99, bunch of languages, allegedly full audio on any of those. I guess I'd like to see early access disappear on Steam. I don't feel like it has benefited anyone really legitimate. Even big like AAA developers that have used early access haven't done it in a successful way. I feel like if they're going to maintain their early access flag, they need to tell people this is only for a select few. We're going to curate the heck out of it, that tag. You're going to have to apply. You're going to have to pay potentially extra to be in early access.
you know my mistake. I'm right
Or something like that. There needs to be some limitations, some curtailing of the use of the early access flag. And not even that many people are wasting their time using it these days, but enough people are that it kind of just fails to mean anything. On the other hand, it probably would help Steam's own information database to have the early access flag so that they could then come back potentially at some point and say, this game's been in early access for 10 years, let's get it off our storefront. If they're ever willing to do that, which is a big if. So yeah, we've made a massive amount of progress. Should be trivial to get 10,420 more points, which would get us 4 more packs in this Sears Globe. I don't think like these quests. Yeah, this ends January 31st, so we are completely fine with that. And then as far as new content, I don't see any new content here. Did they put in any new challenge? Yeah, no new content for me, I don't think. I still have really failed to do this one or this one, and I guess if I get really bored I could come back and try and do those. And then as far as missions, we have like 2 minutes until the daily missions reset, and that's about it. So let's go through the news, and then we might try to just show off what the new mission is, I guess. Let's see. Gematsu has an article: Acquire Atlas, Kodokawa Games, Granzella, Koei Tecmo, and more tease their 2021 plans. I feel like this is similar to what we've already seen as far as articles of people talking, which frankly in the Japanese perspective that's seems just kind of silly to listen to what they've got to say, because they're currently in a position where they can definitely overpromise and underdeliver. Here we have a game on Steam called Cyberlist 3 Online, which looks like it's just a first-person shooter game of no real interest. 1274 online player versus player only, English and Turkish. So nothing there. Next we have a game on Steam called Groupthink, which is just nothing. Free to play. I guess the price is right there. English. See, next we have Sunflower Code, which is a horror mystery puzzle game that's somewhat, I think, having to do with the sunflower paintings of Vincent van Gogh. But then it seems like a lot of this is also just dark screenshot stuff. Seems like they wanted to make a horror game and then just have a bunch of Vincent van Gogh stuff. It seems like this is the combination of a person who has two obsessions and decided to make a video game about it. See, that was like the exact same video twice in a row. Looking around, still doesn't feel like there's anything there. Then we're seeing Asian writing, which makes me suspect something. $8.99 English and Japanese makes me suspect that there's very possibly not much of a game here, and that this is one of the rare low effort Japanese games. And for the screenshots I can get to load, which I'm back to screenshots not loading, unfortunately I'll have to try and work on that some more. There's nothing to see. Next we have Epic City Builder 4, which it's a city sim. It's visually polished enough. It kind of looks like it might have been a cell phone game ported. If it was ported, at least it was done fairly well. It does feel like there's an actual game here. It's early access, $19.99, English only. This is the kind of game I would not object to being allowed to have the early access tag, because this is a complicated simulator game that very possibly could use a lot of polish and work on it. Next we have a game on, we have an article from Komatsu. The Cotton 30th anniversary website has launched and a new title has been reaffirmed for 2021. But first, Cotton Reboot, which Cotton, I believe, is just a shoot 'em up series that was fairly popular in Japan, and I'm not sure it ever came to the West. Two more articles. We have a Gematsu article here. Hitman 3 has its first 5 minutes of gameplay. It's kind of pointless for me specifically to watch the first 5 minutes of gameplay of Hitman 3 when I have not been able to get around to playing Hitman 1 or 2, and it's questionable at what experience can one really have as far as playing Hitman 1 and 2. Because of how much online content, games as service type content existed with Hitman 1, and I think also 2. Finally, we have a game on Steam here called Germany at War, Soviet Dawn, which is another hex crate war game. It, once again, if any of the images would load, does not look terrible. It's 1019 English and German. While that is loading, we'll start the Humble Bundle loading to see if there's any new Humble Bundles. Almost certainly there isn't. Maybe in 2 or 3 days we'll get a new game bundle. Yeah, I'm not really thinking we'll see anything more than minimum 2 days from now. Is try this again, Germany at War. As the screenshots to show them off. Yeah, that looks fine. I'll put that on the follow list. Maybe I am approaching a point where I need to do a follow list cleanup. I kind of need to figure out a order of operations, as it were. Like schedule videos first, then do a follow list cleanup, then play a game. Or do I do one schedule for... or schedule at least 2 games after each single game I play, so we're always making progress. That might work too. Right, so now I'm going down my Twitter feed. We'll see if there's too much to talk about. New. Borderlands 3 is still giving away gold key codes, shift codes for all their games. The Epic Games Store doing its final game that they're giving away. I feel like 2, maybe 3. Nah, it was probably closer to 5 or 6 out of the 15 games. I wouldn't even be surprised if it's 8 or 9. But yeah, I definitely missed a lot too. Alright, so in the 2.5 hours we've been streaming, this game was released on Steam, which is Learn Japanese, and I don't know if I could really trust this, and it just doesn't look amazingly well polished. This is $2.39 English and Japanese, so that's a no to that. And then we have Paladin's Lance on Steam, which you're riding a dragon and fighting something. Problem is the visuals. It's just not polished enough. I kind of like the concept, but the polish is missing. It's $7.99. I'm not going to put it on the follow list. And then the only other article that happened in the 2.5 hours is the 2020 TechRaptor Awards nominees and reader choice vote. So we could go through this, sure. Best multiplayer game, Animal Crossing probably wins that. Maybe Fall Guys wins it. I would probably give my vote to Fall Guys. Best writing, I think Ghost of Tsushima or Hades deserve to probably win that. Best visual design, these are the same picks each time. You might give it to Cyberpunk, but they're not. Somebody's going to give it to Ghost of Tsushima or Hades. Best soundtrack, Doom Eternal maybe wins there. Best expansion, I don't know. I think Stardew Valley 1.5 would probably win. Best evolving game would be Among Us. almost certainly. Maybe Fortnite. Best indie game of the year. Hades wins that, almost certainly. Tabletop games of the year, I couldn't even tell you, nor do I care. I think game of the year, I think you give it to Hades or Ghost of Tsushima. It'd be weird to give it to Half-Life Alyx. Spider-Man Miles Morales, I think, probably deserves it more than anybody. Alright, well, that's gonna be it for this stream, I guess. Let's see. We've got, either we're gonna need to, yeah, I need to do one private match and then get 3 victories. And frankly, I need to do it in 5 hours from now, so I could probably just take a nap if I was going to do anything. But yeah, just not a lot of stuff to do. We could open a pack, or we could save the packs for Monday. I think we'll save the packs for Monday. Yeah, I think that's better, considering it's a Friday and people tend not to play it. Interesting. Why would they give me the Grand Blue Fantasy 7 tie-in? Are these characters tie-ins to the Grand Blue Fantasy? No, they aren't. So apparently they just gave me a card that they knew I didn't have. A card sleeve. That's interesting. I feel like that should be the case every time. That we should be able to slowly be rewarded with all the sleeves that possibly exist. Like, interesting. This item is free, then why don't I have it? When did this happen? I should probably look, make sure there's nothing else free if that's the case. Yeah, either this is a tie-in that's happening right now and they're not even telling anybody about it and promoting it, or this cost money and then it became free, which would irritate a lot of the whales. But this is a glitch and I'm going to take every bit of advantage of it. Let's see. The score rewards cards still, though, seem to cost gems if you really want these emblems and card sleeves. And there's a lot of them. That would be certainly a wasteful use of real world money to just get card sleeves and emblems. There's definitely better things you could spend it on. Yeah, all of those cost money. And then leaders. All the leaders cost money. Oh, these are Grand Blue Fantasy characters. Interesting. Well, I guess that explains the weirdness on the animation. Then. Interesting. Then we could buy more leaders with more money, but I don't think I'd ever do that. At least the trade-offs, like some of these cost cash, and that was a better system. I'd like to see a lot of these things actually be in-game currency also. But I bet they didn't negotiate for that. Then items, the only thing you can buy are these with vials. There's nothing there. Alright, well, that's gonna be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.